Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Community Coyote meeting. Thank you for taking the time from your busy schedules to join us. Your participation and contributions to the Coyote conversation help to share information and encourage community efforts to manage interactions with wildlife. My name is Selena Campbell. I'm the Manager of Enforcement Services, and I'll be facilitating tonight's meeting with the goal of providing a productive and informative session. Before we get started, I would like to acknowledge that Oakville is rich in the history and modern traditions of many First Nations and the Métis. From the lands of the Anishinaabe, the Attawandaron, and the Haudenosaunee, and the Métis, these lands surrounding the Great Lakes are steeped in Indigenous history. As we gather today on these treaties' lands, we are in solidarity with the Indigenous brothers and sisters to honor and respect the four directions, lands, waters, plants, and animals, and the ancestors that walk before us, and all of the wonderful elements of creation that exist. We acknowledge and thank the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation for being the stewards of this traditional territory. We are here to address concerns and questions about coyotes and their interactions with people and pets. There is a lot of information online and misinformation online that's circulating throughout our community. Council and staff have committed to providing residents with the most accurate and up-to-date information. We understand that coyotes can elicit strong feelings, and we respectfully ask everyone to channel that passion into constructive comments and questions. Tonight's agenda will consist of Zoom-related instructions, panelist introductions, a presentation from the town on coyotes and coyote education and response procedure, and then we'll move into a question and answer period with our staff as well as our partners from Coyote Watch Canada. We will start this Q&A session with questions that have already been submitted by some of our participants. The meeting will end at 7 p.m. Please know that this session is being recorded, so anyone who is not able to participate this evening will have an opportunity to watch the session at their convenience. The recording will be made available tomorrow on the Town of Oakville website at oakville.ca. For those of you who aren't familiar with Zoom, as an attendee, you cannot be seen or heard by either us or another participant. We invite you to submit questions through the Q&A feature that is located at the bottom of your screen. The icon location may vary based on the device you're using. We will be monitoring the Q&A to collect your questions for response by our panelists. If you have a question or a comment after tonight's meeting, please submit them to enforcement@oakville.ca. If by chance your question is not answered tonight, please know we are recording all questions and comments for consideration. Tonight we have with us Margaret Boswell, the Manager of Strategy and Support Services, Rebecca Monroe, Strategy and Business Advisor for Municipal Enforcement, Marnie Sharpen, Municipal Standards Investigator, Sean Elliott, Municipal Standards Investigator, Caitlin Jones, Acting Supervisor of Municipal Enforcement, Leslie Sampson, Founding and Executive Director with Coyote Watch Canada, and Natalie Dukic, Manager of Animal Protective Services with the Oakville and Milton District Humane Society. Some members of Council are also listening today to hear your questions and concerns. With that said, let's get started with our presentation by Caitlin Jones on coyotes and the Coyote Education and Response Procedure. Thanks very much. And we'll load that presentation for Caitlin, please.
Good evening, members of the public, councillors, and town staff that have joined us today. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy evening to join us. My name is Caitlin Jones. I'm the Acting Supervisor of Enforcement, and I am overseeing the Coyote program in Oakville. I'm here today to provide you with an overview of coyotes in Oakville and our program, which has been developed to support the community in coexistence with wildlife and coyotes. As part of the presentation, information will be provided on understanding coyote science and adopting coexistence, the coyote program in Oakville, roles and responsibilities of partners connected to our program, information on the coyote education and response procedure, and the implemented town program. The town of Oakville is home to the eastern coyote, a highly intelligent omnivore with a strong ability to adapt to their environment. They are creative foragers and hunters, and they're able to thrive in urban areas where they find an abundance of food and shelter. The eastern coyote's diet is predominantly made up of grubs, insects, small rodents, carrion, which is deceased animals, wildlife, fruit tree droppings, and vegetables. Coyotes are active when resources are available to them, which is both during the day and night, so it's not abnormal to see them at either of these times. Coyotes are part of our natural habitat and provide us with several ecological benefits, such as population control of smaller mammals and helping to reduce the spread of zoonotic diseases. Those are diseases that can be transferred from animals to humans. Eastern coyotes are often referred to as the nickname coy wolf. However, it is important to know that they are one and the same. The eastern coyote reaches a maximum of 45 pounds, but may appear larger due to their lanky stature and their large fur coats. To provide a bit of context to the nickname, the genetic makeup of the eastern coyote stems from over 100 years ago, when the wolf population in the Algonquin area was greatly reduced, and as a result, were forced to breed with the western coyote. And that's why wolf DNA is found today. It is an important distinction to make that eastern coyotes is not a true hybrid species, and it is a close relative to the wolf, the fox, the jackal, and you guessed it, the family dog. It is not uncommon to hear the sounds of coyotes yipping and howling, and like us, they vocalize to communicate, to warn one another of danger, and it acts as a canid GPS system. They are capable of making a variety of sounds, which frequently gets misinterpreted as a really large group of coyotes, when typically it's only 2 or 3 of them. There is a term for this, and it is called the bow jest effect. Coyotes are often mistaken as vocalizing when they are eating their kill, but like people, it is not ideal to be talking with your mouth full. Coyotes are monogamous and they mate for life. They are excellent parents to their young, therefore it would be very uncommon for them to abandon their pups. An average litter size is approximately 2 to 5 pups, but larger litter sizes are not uncommon when there's abundant resources available to them. Their diet does not require them to hunt in packs, and they are not true pack animals. Their pups are born in the spring, and then they're raised until they disperse in the fall to find their own territory. Sometimes they will parent for longer, forming a family unit, and then they may reunite time to time after the pups have dispersed. Coyotes only use a den for a short period of time while the pups are small, and then they relocate them to a safe rendezvous site, where the pups will be left while the parents go find food. This is typically when people mistake them for being abandoned, but as I mentioned, they're really good parents, so unless something were to happen to them, this would be very unlikely. Coyotes are timid by nature, but can be protective, especially when they are around their young. To many, seeing the presence of healthy wildlife in your community is a gift. Some may take it a step further by feeding the wildlife while not understanding the full impact it can have on your community and the animal population within it. All wildlife, including canids, will gravitate towards any food source, be it a location where food is deliberately left out for the animals, or even unintentional feeding locations, such as improperly stored garbage, the fruit droppings from trees, vegetable gardens, or a meal meant for a personal pet. I like to remind people that if you are feeding one, you are feeding them all. You cannot exclusively feed one. Something as small as an improperly kept bird feeder will produce a universal feeding ground for small rodents such as squirrels, rats, Virginia opossums, etc. And then naturally those small mammals are now attractions to the larger ones, such as foxes and coyotes. And not only are the small mammals attractive to a hungry coyote, but the droppings from the feeds, the seeds are as well. Coyotes are part of our natural environment, and our actions can impact the way they behave greatly. Implementing these practices can help promote a healthy coexistence among wildlife and help play the role for future successes. Do not leave out harmful handouts such as food. If you have a bird feeder, as I mentioned, ensure it is clear of droppings. Don't feed your pets outside. Take steps to wildlife-proof your property, such as closing access points under sheds and decks. Keep your property clear of debris and wood piles. Store garbage in proper receptacles, and only put your garbage out on the morning of pickup. Coyotes are one of the many threats to domestic pets, particularly small dogs and cats. Some things that you can do to ensure their safety is to monitor them when they are outside in your yard and not leave them unattended, especially for long periods of time. I know this does not sound ideal to all, but it is a really important component. The Town of Oakville has several bylaws in place, such as ensuring your dogs are leashed when not on your property or in a designated leash-free zone, and to ensure that cats are kept indoors as they're not permitted to roam at large. Following these steps will help reduce conflict and promote a positive coexistence. What about foxes? Oftentimes we receive reports about fox sightings in the Oakville neighborhood, and we wanted to provide just a brief overview of the species and highlight the similarities in the canid family. The red fox is the common species in Oakville, and it's known for its excellent vision, hearing, sense of smell. This helps them when hunting for foods such as voles, mice, squirrels, and rabbits. Foxes are omnivores and will supplement their diet with berries, plants, and like most wildlife, are attracted to any handouts, as I mentioned, be it unintentional or intentional, that are provided by the community. Foxes are monogamous and will stay with a partner for life, however, will disperse in the winter months to travel independently. Part of the canid family, they are similar to the coyotes in their learned behavior. Foxes are extremely agile and, like coyotes, can climb fences like a ladder. When faced with a fox encounter, deploying the hazing methods or humane hazing methods that you will learn in today's seminar will help to better coexist. Just in touching on some sarcoptic mange, it is not uncommon for coyotes to get infected with sarcoptic mange. It has been seen in Oakville over the years. This is a mite that embeds itself under the skin and causes irritation and fur loss. Coyotes suffering from advanced stages of mange will look for areas in the summer months that are warm to help retain their body heat, and useful places for this for them is like driveways and sidewalks. Like when humans are ill, coyotes with mange may be a bit more lethargic and less willing to use their reserved energy unless it's absolutely necessary. This is why these guys are often seen roaming and soaking up the sun for long periods of time, and will resort to any food sources available. That said, not all fur loss is associated with mange. It could be seasonal shedding. Our partners at the Oakville Milton Humane Society will respond to calls for sick and injured wildlife, and they are a resource to you. So if you come across a coyote or a fox that looks like the ones in these photos, you can contact them for more information. Okay, humane hazing or aversion conditioning is a method used to deter coyotes. When deployed appropriately, it is an extremely useful tool to retrain conditioned behavior. It is important to never utilize this technique on a sick or injured coyote, as in the previous slide, or on one that may be protecting a den. Coyotes will sometimes shadow people, which can be reported as being followed or stalked. The reality of this is often a coyote is typically just escorting you away from their home. Similarly to if you were looking out a window on your property because you thought someone was entering into your yard, it's curious, it's monitoring the situation closely while escorting you farther away. If you encounter a coyote on your property or if you're approached by one on a walk, you can respond by humanely hazing it. First thing first, stay calm and never run. I do think that this is an important component to specify because oftentimes if a coyote is escorting you out away from an area and you stop or you run away, that's probably what it wants you to do. It wants you to leave. So it's not training the behavior in that coyote that behavior is bad. It's actually just reconfirming that what they're doing is correct. So utilize these techniques is better to do. So you can also appear larger and use a long, low, strong voice that's authoritative. Wave your arms, clap your hands, and you can escalate as needed, if needed, by throwing sticks or small rocks in the direction of the coyote to signal that they need to leave. Some simple tools that can aid in successful humane hazing include items such as an umbrella, which you can take on a walk, and you can open and close it to appear larger, and it's an abstract shape that's quite startling to them, and it can be used as a walking stick, so it's quite effective. You can use a can of marbles or coins as like an odd noise shaker. A whistle is something that's quite compact. My personal favorite method is a garbage bag. It's small enough, you can keep it in your pocket, but it has a really large impact when you fill it in the air and snap it downwards. Bear in mind that coyotes are adaptable and get used to frequently heard noises. So if you live near a schoolyard or a park, they may be more comfortable around the sounds of whistles or louder noises. So just bear that in mind if you're utilizing a tool. You can pick other options. Deploying behaviors such as humane hazing and resolving feeding issues nearby, you are teaching both the coyote and the community how to properly coexist and work to resolve the issues permanently. So let's talk about our program here in Oakville. The town regularly updates its coyote program to reflect best practices. The coexistence program is housed with the Municipal Enforcement Department and incorporates more on-the-ground resources, which includes supporting the community with education, outreach, and investigations based on reports of den sites and coyotes approaching within 2 meters. We do this through the use of municipal bylaws, coyote reporting forum, investigations completed by our municipal enforcement officers, 2 of which are here today, access to external partners such as Coyote Watch Canada, Oakville Green, and the Ministry of Natural Resources, installation of signage in parks and trails to alert patrons of the presence of coyotes, distribution of flyers to neighborhoods, and access to relevant web content and social media that is current. As we've learned here today, the role of maintaining the coexistence of people, pets, and wildlife becomes a group effort. Each partner involved in this group plays an important role in working towards this balance. The town helps facilitate these roles so that the community receives the support through education required so that we can live in coexistence with wildlife. The town has identified the following groups who have a role in wildlife management and the responsibilities for each group. So to start off, the Town of Oakville is responsible for investigations as outlined in the Coyote Response Strategy, maintaining the Coyote Tracking Forum and relevant data, community outreach and public engagement, overseeing the Coyote Education and Response Procedure, and the installation of signage and managing secure garbage bins in the parks. Property owners are responsible for managing coyotes on your own private property, preventative measures such as removing attractants for wildlife and coyotes and wildlife proofing your property, and also educating yourself and your family. The Oakville and Milton Humane Society is responsible for responding to calls for sick and injured animals, including coyotes, enforcement of town bylaws related to domestic pets, for example, dogs off leash or cats roaming, the removal of dead animals from public roadways, and they are also an educational resource for you. We also leverage external partners to assist with scientific expertise and community education and hazing and investigations. Again, I point towards one of them being Coyote Watch Canada. The Ministry of Natural Resources assists with policy and legislation and supports with educational materials. Lastly, the Halton Regional Police Services can assist in the unlikely situation where there is immediate threat to personal safety, as they are the only agency permitted for the use of firearms. Through good teamwork, we can all help in empowering our community to coexist with wildlife. In order to further assist residents understand the Coyote program in Oakville, staff have developed a Coyote Education and Response Procedure. This procedure incorporates strategies that directly address the primary reasons coyotes may come into conflict with people and look to define each report type with the level of response attached to it. Emphasis for the program is focused on public education and awareness and responding appropriately when interacting with wildlife. This framework includes responses taken for coyote sightings, den sightings, situations where a coyote has approached or followed a person or a pet, or an escalated response in the event of a physical interaction with a person or a pet. Key preventative practices, such as limiting food, shelter, water, and avoiding leaving small pets unattended or roaming free, are key to minimizing potential negative interactions between people, pets, and coyotes. This simplified approach should provide greater clarity to the public and support current education and communication programs in responding to public concerns with coyotes, and is available on our website for you to research. The reporting tool was introduced in 2012 to serve as a multi-use tool alongside the coyote management strategy. A more sophisticated, updated version of the reporting system continues to be a key part of the coyote education and response procedure today. It provides residents an opportunity to submit their coyote interactions and view other submissions through the online map. It also provides staff the opportunity to investigate more serious reports of coyote interactions. The Coyote reporting tool collects data to best direct the town's efforts. It offers residents an opportunity to submit information, including photos, relating to various coyote interactions, sometimes foxes. While this form does not allow staff to determine the number of coyotes, as it obviously can duplicate in terms of sightings, it's based on sightings, not on population. It is a useful tool to help identify areas of the community where coyotes may be more active. It highlights areas where signage can be installed to promote awareness and also helps when investigating reports of active feeding in the community. The data from this form will assist in identifying the response to be taken based on the report type, as noted in the coyote response strategy. Staff will respond accordingly to the report type and may include the distribution of flyers, installation of signage, updating of the garbage systems in parks. The response from the town will increase based on the strategy and will include a more in-depth investigation relating to den sites or interactions with domestic pets or people. Okay, so let's look at a recent case study for an investigation that was conducted utilizing our response program. Our bylaw officers investigated concerns of a nearby den as multiple sightings were reported. A field inspection was completed with Coyote Watch Canada and no den site was discovered. Upon reviewing the sightings on the reporting tool, it helped narrow down a specific location. Officers attended the area on patrol and located a food source nearby that turned out to be this compost bin, which, as you can see, is a major attractant to wild animals. Enforcement measures were taken to remove and clear the area, and upon removal, sightings and investigative reports have declined in the last 6 months. So here's just a snapshot of the reporting that reflects the time frame of that concern. So as you can see on the before side, it reflects sightings captured over the span of 6 months prior to the compost being addressed. And on the after side, this reflects sightings 6 months afterwards. We did see a reduction in the exact area the food source, that the food source was located, as well as in overall reports. As you can see, 26 reports on one and then 10 after. When our staff move forward with an investigation, they will check for nearby parks to ensure proper signage is posted and that there's adequate disposal receptacles at those locations. If you ever encounter overflowing garbage receptacles or not enough even, just report it on our website using the Report a Problem tool. This way we can ensure that it gets cleaned up and that proper receptacles are installed as needed. We do rely heavily on the public to be our eyes and ears, and simple reporting such as our online mapping tool for any bylaw violations or park maintenance can make a big difference in how we coexist as a community. For more information relating to education materials such as hazing videos, e-learning modules, and seasonal coyote information, please visit our website at oakville.ca. I thank you all very much for your time, and at this time I'd like to pass the podium back over to Selena, who will begin facilitating the question and answer portion of today's seminar. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that presentation, Caitlin. It was wonderful. So we'll get started with our frequently asked questions and ones that had been submitted by some of the participants in advance of today's meeting. So the first question is, can we relocate dens to a more rural area? So I'm going to ask Caitlin to respond to this first question.
The short answer to that question is no. Unfortunately, the Fish and Wildlife Conservation Act prohibits animals from being relocated more than 1 kilometer outside of where they are captured. There are reasons in place for this, just based on picking up an animal from one location and putting it into the middle of nowhere. They don't have the ability to find resources that they would have in their home ground, but also more importantly, for humans, it is also a disease transfer precaution. So just to make sure if there's an outbreak or if there's illnesses or diseases that are present in one area, it's not being transferred to other parts of the province. So unfortunately, no, that's not something that's permitted just based on that legislation.
Thank you, Caitlin. And the next question is, can we shoot coyotes? And Caitlin, again, if you could respond.
Also, no. There are federal and municipal laws with respect to discharging a firearm. As you can imagine, in speaking with authorities, there is a much greater risk with stray bullets than the threat to coyotes. So unfortunately, no. And in addition to that, there are cruelty legislation pertaining, I guess, municipal, federal, and provincial legislation that speaks to causing or harming animals distress, which can go very wrong if not done instantaneously and reversibly. So again, no, there are limitations with that as well.
Thank you very much, Caitlin. Our next question is for Leslie with Coyote Watch Canada. Leslie, can we call coyotes in Oakville? I think you're on mute.
Thank you, Selena. So historically, rigorous eradication programs like culling haven't been successful. They're also very expensive. In order for a canid population to decrease at all, you would be killing over 80% annually. And there's a lot of mobility within different territories. So once you've removed that home range family, more will take over that empty space. Also, coyotes respond very successfully to when their numbers are reduced. And so there will be an uptick in birth rates. And so because everything is based on availability of shelter, food resources, and shade, territories. So it's not an effective approach. And also, once you remove a coyote family or you're removing adults that are part of the teaching of that family, there's an unstable now members in the population. So it's better to work with the coyotes you do have and minimize the attractants, as mentioned throughout Caitlin's presentation.
Thank you, Leslie. And actually, I have another question for you as well, please. Can you let everybody know if coyotes can jump fences?
Both coyotes and fox are very effective at climbing fences. They can jump. They are excellent at scaling up a fence, especially, even a fence as high as 6 to 7 feet. So typically, we would say absolutely yes, they both can, and they are great at climbing.
Thanks very much, Leslie. So my next question then will go back to Caitlin. Caitlin, how do I keep coyotes out of my backyard? Is installing a higher fence an option? And what's your advice for letting my dog out in the evening?
Thank you. So with respect to fences, there is a fencing bylaw and components under the property standards bylaw as well that limits the height that fences are allowed to be within the town of Oakville. So 2 meters and then 2.2 meters if there's lattice on top. There is a variance process if individuals are looking to go above and beyond that against what the bylaw permits. However, it's not a fail-safe option. So we go back to the same practices that we've kind of spoken about this evening with respect to humane hazing and confirming that those coyotes should not be in your yard, as well as monitoring your pets when they're outside, just to make sure in case there's anything that's there, they're not subjected to the variety of threats, including coyotes.
Great, thanks very much, Caitlin. So now we're going to go to a lot of the questions that have come in through our Q&A. Rebecca Monroe has been compiling all the information and putting like questions together so that we can respond to those. So if it doesn't sound exactly the way you've worded it, don't worry, it's probably because we're answering a combination of questions. The first question that she has, I think, is going to be directed to Margaret Boswell, and I'll ask Rebecca to ask the question.
Thank you. Margaret, How do you define success with your program when the coyote problem has increased by 90% over the last few years?
Thank you, Rebecca. So I would measure the success of our program as being the use of our reporting form, as the stats do indicate that since the implementation of our program in 2020, reports have increased, mainly due to sightings. In addition, we have responded to several cases and residents per year on various different issues, such as coyotes entering into backyards, coyotes in the area being perhaps following, as they've been walking along. And what the officers are supporting, along with our team here today, is really supporting the public in helping them understand what types of behaviors are perhaps normal, and then where we can also manage what our space with the coyotes look like. And so they're providing public education in response or in forms such as distributing flyers. And I think, Caitlin, maybe after I'll hand it over to you to provide a number of flyers that we've distributed over at least the last year. And we have been very successful in providing that level of public education to many residents throughout the town. I would not suggest, and we have no information to support, that the number of coyotes have increased. We are looking really rather at the number of sightings, as Caitlin has indicated, that the number of sightings are not directly related to the actual physical number of coyotes in our community, but rather just the number of people that are seeing coyotes in the community. And I think that is an important piece that we need to remember as residents of Oakville, is that their coyotes are transient. So where you may see a coyote down by the lake, by Burl Oak and Lakeshore as an example, you may see that same coyote down the street over closer maybe to Great Lakes in, just up the street. And so they're not confined to a certain area. And so that's why the tracking system is so instrumental in our program, because it really helps the community and helps our staff identify areas where we can help assist the community with more education. Caitlin, do you have that number of flyers that we distributed, I think, from last year at the very least?
Yep, it was just shy of 1,000 that were hand delivered.
Thank you. And I think that really, as I said, the use of the program and the availability of our officers to support the community is really our measure of success. And I think really the public, I think, has done well with the information that we've provided. So I would leave it at that would be our simple measure of success.
Thank you very much, Margaret. And I agree, it's nice to see the numbers of our sightings go up, and the use of the online reporting system seems to be increasing as well. So I encourage all residents to continue to use that reporting system. Certainly the information is invaluable to us. So Rebecca, I think we have another question.
We do. Who among the overlapping jurisdictions has the authority to make a call on the coyotes?
And Caitlin, if you can provide a response for this.
Yep, the long and the short is the Ministry of Natural Resources. So if they have any programs in place, they're the overarching body when it comes to wildlife, and they house the Fish and Wildlife Conservation Act.
Perfect, thanks very much. And Rebecca, do we have any more questions?
We do. We have another one that says, throughout the presentation, there was information given relating to investigating in feeding. What's being reviewed there, and are there any penalties for it?
Thank you very much. So I think the case study that was there was really one that Officer Elliott had spearheaded. So I'm going to ask Sean to come in and let us know whether or not there was an educational case, or if there were penalties or charges with anything really with respect to that.
Thanks, Helena. So in that particular case, we had two overlapping bylaw issues. We had lot maintenance for the way the food waste was being stored. It didn't have a lid. And we also had that property abutted onto green space or trail system. We had a parks encroachment concern. So with that, we used a written warning or written order to clean up the box, remove it from the park system, and when it was brought back onto the private portion, to be correctly have a lid over top, sealed, and in compliance with the lot maintenance plan. And the resident did that willingly, and we just issued an order and a caution at that point.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Sean. Rebecca, do we have any more questions from the Q&A?
We do. We have, why do we consider locating a den a concern, and why do we consider coyotes in the community a concern?
Thank you very much, Rebecca. So I think I'll look to Leslie to provide a response to this one, if you can, Leslie. And Caitlin, I don't know if you want to follow up with anything else after.
So the question is actually, why is locating a den and why are coyotes a concern in the community? Is that, am I getting the
Yes, that's correct.
yes?
Yeah.
Okay. So first and foremost, it takes an entire community to be aware and contribute to coexistence programs. So the Town of Oakville has an incredibly comprehensive coexistence program, which also relies on the input and the efforts of community members. And so if there's a particular location where there might be a coyote den, then staff would need to know about that, if there needs to be barriers erected, or just provide public education for residents if they happen to be nearby. Also, if the public isn't aware of how to behave appropriately and how to take steps to wildlife proof the property, as Caitlin had mentioned throughout the presentation, that can become an attractant. And then you have issues of compliance, as Sean mentioned. And so overall, I mean, wildlife in and of itself isn't necessarily the concern. The concern is knowing how to behave appropriately, what the steps are for aversion conditioning if you happen to have an encounter, and also knowing what you're able to do in terms of empowering not only yourself to respond safely and appropriately with a coyote or a fox, for example, but also how you can contribute to the reporting system and other issues like dogs off leash, for example, or inappropriate feeding.
Thank you, Leslie. And Caitlin, did you want to add anything further to that?
I think that was actually quite well-rounded.
I agree. Thanks very much. Rebecca, do we have any other questions?
Just a couple. What is more common, coyotes assaulting humans or dogs assaulting humans?
And Caitlin, I think you have some information on this topic.
I did come with statistics. Just have to find it. Bear with me one second.
No problem. Did we want to go to the next question? Oh, you found it already?
Got it. I know the answer. I just wanted to make sure that the numbers were perfectly accurate. So the short answer, again, is dog bite investigations. So within the region, the number of reported dog bite investigations or incidences reported were 620. 195 of those were in Oakville. There were reports of contact between coyote investigations, which were 2, and 1 was reported as most likely a dog. All of these numbers are not necessarily verified, but they are reports for contact purposes.
Thank you very much, Caitlin. And Rebecca, our next question, please.
We have a We don't have a question right now. We have some comments around, sorry, I apologize. Somebody's impressed with the reporting tool. They walk in Morrison Creek Ravine every day. They regularly see coyotes, and they just wanted to let people know they're just like dogs. Go about your business, show no fear.
And thank you for that comment. So anytime, we'll always take a plug for the reporting tool, for sure. Excellent. So if you have any last questions, please enter them into the Q&A before we go. If you have any questions after this session, please send them to enforcement@oakville.ca. We're happy to provide you with an answer. The session will be available online tomorrow, so you'll be able to watch it. We'll also be posting answers to any other questions that are asked after this session online as well, so you'll be able to review any further questions and answers that come in. All right, so we'll just give it a couple of seconds just to see if any final questions come in right now. And in the meantime, I would like to thank all our panelist members for being here. Your contributions and your day-to-day activities in helping us manage the coyote and people interactions throughout Oakville is always appreciated. You are professionals every single day. So thank you all for your input today and coming to our session. Thank you to everyone who registered for this session and provided your questions and comments. We couldn't make this program successful without you. So every day is, it's a new opportunity for us to work with our wildlife and make sure we're teaching the wildlife how to stay wild. So thank you all for joining this session today, and feel free to visit us online for more information and keep using that reporting tool. Thank you, everyone. Take care.